Just over 3 months ago, I made a video regarding my thoughts on the state of Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled at the time. I shared that while I adore the game to no end, there were several issues that had become very prevalent, and ultimately how these issues could be resolved given time. However, looking back on that video and playing the game now, it's become much more clearer what the key problem with the game is, at least to me, and what ultimately is making it a struggle to keep coming back to the game and enjoying it on a more frequent basis. It's not burnout, it's not microtransactions, and it's certainly nothing to do with the quality of the content, far from it. Simply put, I've come to realize that Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled's online mode is pretty poor, all things considered, and barely anything has been done since the game's release to try and remedy this. Now, before I delve any more into this, I need to state I am not trying to be intentionally negative for the sake of it. I want this game to be as great as it can be because when all is said and done, I still love this game. It's one of my favorite games, period. The gameplay and content is fantastic. But unfortunately, that can't fix the main issue at hand here. In a game such as this, an online mode is very important to its ongoing engagement of players. Because as fun as the single player modes can be, there's only so much you can do against computer races before it becomes very samey. With the online mode, you're playing with other players all the time of varying skill, ensuring that a basic race will always play out differently. It's what keeps the game fresh, and it's what keeps players playing the game and coming back to it. But in my personal experience, as the game's life cycle has gone on, I only feel like this game's online mode has only gotten worse. Here is why I think that. Number 1, trying to find a lobby in the first place is a nightmare on its own. This is something I simply can't fathom, being published by such a large company as Activision, that can give its games like Call of Duty much smoother and stable servers and where lobbies can be found very easily. It can't do the same for their other games apparently. It can be a complete shot in the dark whether you'll find a lobby straight away or whether you'll be waiting sometimes 3 to 5 minutes for a game. And when you do, more often than not, the host has a high tendency to leave right before the game starts or whether a track they don't like is voted for, therefore disbanding the entire lobby, for fuck's sake. This is perhaps the thing that players have found the most annoying. Honestly, when you take a look at it, the online mode is about as stable as a pipe bomb held together with scotch tape. And I am just baffled how it is still in this state over 6 months after release. Number 2. Online mode is poorly balanced. Now, initially lobbies just pulled together a bunch of random players of varying skill, and you of course can clearly see the problem with that. So Beanox then said that they were adding skill-based matchmaking. Great, but when it was implemented, I barely saw any of a difference, to be honest, and if anything, I felt like something became worse all of a sudden. I don't know why, but for some reason that I just can't quite put my finger on, online races became suddenly very dictated by power-ups, or at least much more than usual. More often than not, the outcome is decided within the first 10 to 20 seconds due to all players being clumped together in a power-up frenzy at the start. And the one player who comes out the least scathed and who's able to maintain speed is usually the winner. Why? Because the power-up balance, in my opinion, is dumb. Power-ups are meant to be what keeps the game chaotic, a way for players of equaling skill to be able to get one over on each other. The majority of the most devastating power-ups are given to players in the middle of the pack, and weak power-ups like potions and crates are given to those who are ahead. Now, while that might sound quite fair and balanced on paper, in execution it is quite flawed, since more often than not, those players who speed ahead become almost unstoppable, since there is very little the other players in a nearby position can do to oppose them, with most of the chaos happening in the middle of the pack, therefore not allowing players to progress. Now, what I'm about to say to resolve this might be actually, no, scratch that, it will be very controversial. Because I think that the two power-ups that are meant to prevent players from gaining too high an advantage, the clock and the warp orb, are way too scarce. When the game launched, they were far too frequent, but when people complained, I think Beanox may have taken it too far in the other direction. I think that just by slightly increasing their distribution rate amongst the lower placed racers might help to combat this issue. And I already think the change of making the warp warp hyper fast so that players can't outrun it is a good start. But ultimately, as is now, there is still a big imbalance in the online systems, and especially power-ups. I mean, there is a clear reason why people have been begging for a no power-ups mode, so they can cut out the chaos and have matches based on pure nitty-gritty skill. Speaking of which, number 3, and probably my biggest issue with the online mode, is the lack of any other game modes or any significant changes to the mode since release. Look, I love the gameplay of CTR and I enjoy a classic race as much as the next person, but coming back to the game constantly to grind and earn each of the Grand Prix rewards, playing just normal races gets so stale after a while, and I find it odd that Beenox has not done anything with this at all, considering the great potential. Like as I just stated, we could have no power-up races, maybe online CTR challenges, team races, cup tournaments. Surely anything, just anything to break up the monotony of things sometimes. You know, I find it frustrating that I am frustrated about this, because there's so much I love about this game, and I love how throughout its season it's given us so much great stuff in terms of characters, tracks, and carts, all for free, might I add, and how the game has become like a celebration of Crash Bandicoot's history as a franchise. It's wonderful to see. I really wish that Beenox started to give more of a focus to what is, let's be honest, the biggest and most prevalent part of Nitro Fueled. It's the mode that's gonna keep the game alive and keep the players coming back. I will always remain hopeful and optimistic, but these issues will still persist on my mind. And though in the long run, it ultimately won't ruin my enjoyment of the game to any extent, I can't simply ignore these problems, though I will always be positive when looking to what the game will offer us in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. If you have anything you'd like to share about this topic, then please do tell me in the comments below. I am very curious to see how others feel about this. But for the time being, feel free to like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.